Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this Tampa CRA meeting to order. Just a couple of things. Board member Miranda will be late. Board member Hertek, to my understanding, is sick. Board member Vieira is on his way. He's running late, so I'll handle it for a few minutes until they show up. At this time, I yield to board member Young for the invocation.
Thank you very much. Today for our invocation, we have Mr. Jalen Bryan, who is an 8th grade student at Franklin Boys Preparatory Academy. He is going to attend Armwood Collegiate Academy next year. He wants to attend FAMU or Harvard for college. He is a student leader on his campus, serving as executive officer. He enjoys playing the saxophone and the bass drum. He has participated in the MLK Parade and the Tampa Bay Tech Battle of the Bands, and he is looking forward to what the future brings. He's joined today by his principal, Mr. Brent Williams, and one of his teachers, Ms. Caitlin Zimmerman. Ms. Jalen, will you lead us in the invocation, please?
All right, please stand.
Good morning. My name is Jalen Bryan. I am an 8th grade student at Franklin Middle Magnet School. I serve as Executive House Officer for the House of Integritas, which represents integrity. At Franklin, we say integrity is doing the right thing while no one is watching, which I realize mirrors this council's efforts to serve their city. In times of such great unease in our country, Lord, we look to those who serve our community to do so with their constituents in mind. Father, we call you to guide these servants to their respective districts to make choices that empower and serve the people of Tampa to their greatest potential. Please allow your undefined grace to embed in each district separately in order to serve the whole. God, provide them with the strength to conceptualize what is necessary and extract it from the tangling webs with which they are often presented. Father God, allow this council to take care of themselves and their families' mental and physical health so they are better equipped to take care of our city. Father God, provide this council with tools necessary to create an even more vibrant Tampa. And that's all I have, sorry.
Amen.
Will
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
May I say one thing, Tim?
Yeah.
What's his name, Jalen? Jalen, I'm going to ask Darlene, if she doesn't mind, to take my card to you. And for anybody else watching, we need more kids from Tampa to go to Ivy League schools and the best schools in the world. And anything we can do to help you or your friends do that. It's really tough to get in those schools, but for Harvard, for example, there's a group of alumni, and they'll coach you starting now to help you figure out how to prepare and what you need to do in high school, and then they'll interview you as you apply. So if you don't already, you may already have lots of help, but if you don't, let me know. I'm happy to plug you in. And for anybody else watching that we can help with, we also can write letters of recommendation on our letterhead if that's helpful.
Do you want to come up for a picture? Yeah, let's all get a picture. Yep.
Do you want me to take a picture?
That'd be awesome.
You want the chairs in the front? Thank you very much. I heard the voice of Vieira, so he'll take over from here. We'll wait for Councilman Vieira to walk in. I believe he's outside. There he is.
The what? Oh, I was gonna say, hey, roll call? Oh, like you mean? Oh, call for the roll. Okay, there you go. Have at it.
Miranda. Maniscalco. Hurtak.
Oh,
Clendenin. Carlson. Young. Vera.
here.
We have physical form.
Thank you, council. Okay, we have not reviewed the agenda, correct? No. Okay, so let's do so if we may. First, let's see, any comments or reforms on items number 1 through 6? Anything for anybody here? Okay, would appear. Yes, oh, Mr. McCray. Hey, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Chair Vieira. Cedric McCray, Tampa CRA Director. Just one adjustment, if we could move item number 9 to under staff reports.
Yes, sir. We have a motion by Board Member Maniscalco, seconded by Board Member Carlson. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. And do you have a preference on that, sir? Want to just take it after 6?
That will be fine.
Okay. Okay. Any reforms to the required approvals from staff or board members? Okay, so we will just hear them as we traditionally do. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. Motion to approve the agenda, I guess. Motion by Board Member Maniscalco, seconded by Board Member Carlson. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay.
Can we approve the adoption of the minutes from February 12th and March 6th, CRA?
Yes, sir, we do. Motion by Board Member Maniscalco, seconded by Board Member Carlson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and begin, if we may, with item number 1. And is Mr.
Public comment first. And we have one registered speaker.
Not doing well these days. Okay, public comment. If you're here to do public comment, please come forward. And if you are here for public comment, please raise your hand so we can know. Okay, we have a couple. Okay, very good. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good morning, Connie Burton. When you're late, you get rattled.
Yeah.
I want to really appreciate the young man in his prayer this morning for just saying how, as a servant leader, things that we are obligated to do. One of the obligations I see always is the application for the community in which I've given over 40 years for, and that's East Tampa. I'm going to wait Mr. Johnson's report, but I could tell you that over the 20-plus years, the residents of East Tampa have been very, very clear of the things that they know they needed. We needed an economic engine. We haven't gotten it. We needed a major, all hands on deck, the ability to save legacy, people that have invested in East Tampa when nobody looked in that direction, when land over there was valueless. But now we got homes over there that's costing up to $250,000. For the residents that's living there in East Tampa now, they need a major rehab. And in addition to that, to all of the time delayed when the East Tampa CAC staff bought into the fact that we was almost a city within a city and had to take up, in my opinion, major obligations that the city neglected in East Tampa. So right now, as the clock spins and we are almost to our 30-year mark in East Tampa, we still look like a divided city. We still need time to bring that part of the city up to code so people can have real dignity in living. What we need also is that all of the monies that the city allocate to nonprofits and other entities, we need real checks and balances. Because these social services and the ills in our community in terms of the double-digit unemployment that we have, the delinquency that we have in our community, those are solvable things, in my opinion. And lastly, as you move toward this new venture for affordable housing, I want you to keep in mind that in the state of Florida, minimum wage is about up to $15. So affordable housing for us would not be people that have the ability to have a starting salary at $61,000. That wouldn't be affordable. So let's don't play the shell game and make sure that everybody have an opportunity to fair and affordable housing in this city, and that those that make below the poverty level is not the ones that receive the least housing as you move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, please.
Good morning, Council. Julie McGill. If the city were a construction project, they would fail every inspection. As a contractor, before you build anything, you tend to need to know what's existing. I have studied the drainage, and I know I emailed each and every one of you. South Tampa has a spider web, a virtual spider web of drainage, culverts, swales, retention ponds that I feel were not fully investigated before you started looking at the South Howard flood project. When was the last inspection done on any of these? I know that they do a couple here and a couple there, but I'm talking the whole southern peninsula. When was the last inspection or maintenance or pumps? I know pumps, most of them aren't working. We knew that during the hurricane. So we need to know the method that they decided that all these drains couldn't handle the amount of water. Before spending this massive amount of money on the South Howard project, we should be investigating what we already have. We're going to cause a huge disruption on Howard Avenue. All those businesses, my heart goes out to them. And my heart goes out to all the people in South Tampa that flooded. And I do understand Parkland Estates and Palmacia Pines have a vested interest in this. And my heart goes out to them, but my heart goes out to the rest of South Tampa, all the houses that I had to fix after the floods. So it's a peninsula-wide, not just a certain section, but what I'm saying is we may already have the system in place to help everyone. So we need to investigate that, and I hope that you do, and if you look at the emails or want any more from me, just let me know because I've been studying this. As a contractor, I know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Next, please.
Good morning, board members. I'm John Shuffle, representing Gasparilla Arts, which is the parent organization for the Gasparilla Festival of the Arts. I was here in December to tell you about this wonderful mural that we were creating in East Tampa on the CDC building that has been dedicated in January. This mural, it celebrates the significance of 6 remarkable African-American women from East Tampa's history, and it incorporated 10 girls from the PACE Center for Girls. They were part of an education part, learning about a career in the arts. They also helped paint part of the mural. And the dedication was really amazing. The girls were just overwhelmed by it. To hear them being recognized on the stage by so many powerful people just was something that they never even fathomed. And they felt seen, which is something that they've never felt before. So as Board Member Young, you were not able to be there since it was on a Thursday and you have meetings, but we do have a piece that we want to give to you that the artist Michelle Sawyer created. So I'll give it to Darlene.
Very nice and thoughtful. Very nice. Thank you, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Ashley Morrow, and I'll be sharing Tampa's Black History. Today, I'm going to be focused on land ownership. So, this up, my iPad is dead. It's okay. The 1862 Homestead Act allowed any U.S. citizen or intended citizen, including women and freed slaves, over 21 who had not fought against the Union, to claim 160 acres of public land. Applicants paid a small fee, lived on the land for 5 years, and cultivated to gain the title. So in Tampa, near downtown, this was considered like the city at that point, that red area. This was Fort Brooke, so it was like military reservation. And these black pieces of land, these black areas were pieces of land owned by black people. Cyrus Charles, I spoke about him being the first black councilman. Fortune Taylor, Thomas Jackson, William J. McKnight, further out there, John Matthews, Henry Hopkins, and Richard Hamilton. Thomas Jackson was actually the first one. He was right here above where Oaklawn is currently right now. Oaklawn's a corner, and he was above it. That was his piece of land. Cyrus Charles and Fortune Taylor, I believe, William McKnight out there towards Ybor. He owned this piece of land right here. Then you had Cyrus Charles. This was his land grant document there. Sorry about that. Then you have Fortune Taylor, who was the one that you all know. And her land, I guess, was around where the Barrymore Straz is, I believe. And then Henry Hopkins up top. I don't know what's right there, but that was his land right there. And then you have Richard Hamilton and John Matthews, which Armature Works is right there on that corner. Give y'all some reference. So you may be wondering about the scrub. What about the scrub? The scrub was owned by a white man named Samuel Mitchell, who was granted the land because he participated in the war. This is him right here. And he was granted this land. He was a Florida volunteer in the Florida War. And this is the piece of land right here, platted out. Now, he sold to white men. And the one that I want to point out here is Muggy, Robert Muggy. He actually came and spoke at the History Center last year about his ancestry. He wrote a book about him. And these were the plots of land that the people he sold it to. These were the black people that he sold it to. You guys recognize Dorcas Bryant? And she was actually the trustee of another young black girl. And I haven't found any documents with her name as the owner of any of the land, but her family owned a lot of the land in that subdivision. So that was one of the first black subdivisions in Tampa. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you as always. Next, please.
Hi, Valerie Bullock Ponce Leon College here. I want to talk about the CRA, but first I had to send Yvette Lewis. She said good morning to everybody in the NAACP. They're having a health expo on the 28th of March. We'll be giving away Fitbits and people in the community and everywhere. You all are welcome, and she looks forward to seeing you all. Where? At the NAACP, Gary High School, with the mobiles in the back. Okay, and I want to talk about East Tampa CRA. East Tampa CRA is so far behind the other CRAs. And I think one of the reasons why we're so far behind, most of the other CRA, they have professionals on their seats. They have architecture, they have building, urban planners, business people, and they are associated with business partners, just like Channelside. Okay, the Aquarium is part of theirs. In East Tampa, we just have people off the streets, and nothing wrong with everyday people because I'm one of them. But we do need business people on the CRA board also, like urban planners and architects, so that we can be guided into the future. Because it's a very sad day. You go down 22nd Street and it look the same from 1970. And everywhere else I see cranes, Central Park, Tampa Heights. You see people are building. I don't know what you all are doing, but if you can put a little bit more effort in it and get us some economic development in East Tampa, it would be greatly appreciated. Because we like the pretty $500,000 houses, but we can't buy them. We cannot buy them. And in the apartments you all are building, we can't move in them. Most of them, there's no such thing as 30% no more. I seen on Channelside 80, 100, 120, 140 AMI. Well, we might as well just say we're helping builders and millionaires. The people who need help the most, they're being left behind. And this is a pattern in East Tampa. And we need to do something to remove the barriers and to fill in the gaps. When I see people on my street moving out of their mom's house, the daughter and the granddaughter, then I say, oh, we making progress in East Tampa. But until then, we're not making no progress. And the CRA, it definitely need to be extended. I remember when they did the plan for 22nd Street, it haven't been implemented yet. So if we got a lot of things that we'd like to see built, we might need to do an extension. And I would like to see 22nd Street modernized, like Riverwalk, like Waterfront, and the Armature Works. And I really don't think I'm gonna see it in my lifetime. I think it's a pattern where the powers that be continue to say, no, no, no. We haven't got the demographics where we want it yet. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Next, please.
Good morning, City Council, and we're gonna wing it a little bit today, but I wanted to make sure that I'm Chagret Doss, by the way. I wanted to give a hearty shout out to Ms. Driscoll for introducing House Bill 235, which is Florida's version of the Crown Act, which gives dignity to young people who may have hair textures that don't seem to meet with the standards of some other people. And I'm gonna try to be refrained because I know my aunt is watching. And also to Mr. Edmonds, who presented a resolution that would allow veterans in Florida to receive dental care without having to have a 100% disability rating. And that's something that's very much needed. And crazy enough, not crazy enough, I also want to shout out a recent clarification that came from the highest court about what would constitute probable cause or reasonable suspicion for detention does not constitute probable cause for an arrest, and that the necessary elements for the probable cause must all be met. And I'm pretty sure you all probably thought of quite a bit of my writing. But I also wanted to speak to something came up yesterday. I was over at the 700 Twigs building, and a couple of Sheriff Chronister's subcontracted people said that there's actually a policy that prohibits veterans from going upstairs, or people in general. He said people in general, but that kind of left at the end of my engagement because somebody who didn't look like me walked behind me without being detained in the lobby of the 700 Twigs building. And specifically, Lieutenant Murphy said that it's somewhere in the 88 pages of his SOP or what have you, as he was taking up for Mr. Cruz. And I had heard about them giving certain people a difficult time accessing that building. I didn't have context until yesterday. So yesterday I get there a little bit early to take care of some business, and I was actually detained in the lobby and told I couldn't go to the third floor and wait at the service building, at the service entrance for the sheriff until 9 o'clock. Oddly enough, what happened was somebody who didn't look like me went through the process and didn't get detained there. So I just want to know, just for clarity, I'm hoping the city doesn't have that similar policy that you can't go up into the waiting room and wait. I'm going to find out what the details are, and I'll do a proper request for that information. Beyond that, I think I'm hoping that this city does take the concerns of the East Tampa residents seriously and is always imparting. I shout out the greatest institution of higher learning in the city of Tampa, the University of Thomas Jefferson High School.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else here in person for public comment? Okay, there being none, do we have any virtual? Okay, let's have at it, sir.
Good morning. My name is Michael Randolph, and I'm with the West Tampa CDC. Today's topic is on the Opportunity Zone expansion in West Tampa. The federal government is preparing what many are calling Opportunity Zone 2.0, a round of OZ designations and investments ruling taking effect in 2007. The deadline is July the 1st, 2026, when governors must submit nomination for the new zone. West Tampa must be part of that nomination. Along North Boulevard and Main Street, we are seeing rapid land speculation, rising displacement pressure, and declining affordability for long-time residents. Expanding the Opportunity Zone to North Boulevard direct more federal incentive to the corridor where vulnerability is the greatest. The expansions align with the city planning priorities, the CRA goals, and the commitment made through the Rome Yard Benefit Agreement. It also created a unified redevelopment zone from Main Street to Columbus Drive, supporting coordinated infrastructure, housing, and economic development rather than pragmatic response. With the right safeguards, West Tampa can attract long-term, mission-aligned capital, CDFIs, impact funds, foundations, and affordable housing development, partners who work together to benefit the community as a whole instead of short-term profits. We request your support along with the state and federal partners to ensure that West Tampa is included in the Florida's 26 OZ zone nomination. This is a once-in-a-decade chance to secure investment and strengthen the neighborhood without displacing people who build it. Next, we've recently saw what the success in the community through the rezoning. The redistricting outcome confirmed that the West Tampa Black vote and the broader Black and Brown coalition remain strong. That success was made possible with partners on East Side, West Tampa, and Sulphur Springs, and the West Tampa CDC stood together. It began with an emergency meeting called by the West Tampa CDC to residents and the Planning Commission in the same room, followed by a mass outreach campaign to inform and mobilize the community. The same unity will drive the Opportunity Zone effort. Give a shout out to Robin Lockett for her being a state representative, a proven leader, and no nonsense leader as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, including for that endorsement. And,
Chair.
yes, sir, go ahead, sir, or whoever, whichever was first.
Michael Randolph, my dogs have a job. Their job is to be cute and give me kisses all day long. He's always telling me the dogs need to get a job.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir.
So I actually have something else.
Oh, yes, sir, I'm sorry, please.
I make a motion to move items 7 and 8 and 10 through 13.
Okay, any discussion on that? Oh,
7, 8, and then we took 9 to staff reports,
Yeah.
so 7, 8, 10 through 13.
okay. Do we have a second? Okay, and take a look, board members, everybody good to vote?
7, 8, 10, and 13.
10 through 13.
10 through 13.
Yeah, because we moved 9 to the staff reports.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have moved it.
And do we have a second?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Was that it, sir? Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment. Next week, we're out on spring break, but Miss Connie has a big birthday next week with a 0 at the end of it, and I won't say what the number is, but happy birthday, and thank you for all your advocacy and hard work in the community.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, board members, so we'll go forward to item number 1. Our CAC Chair for East Tampa, Jeffrey Johnson, come forward. I guess.
Good morning, board members. Felix Nunez, East Tampa CRA Manager. It's my great pleasure to introduce Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Johnson this morning. He's going to talk about all the wonderful things going on in East Tampa.
Great. Oh, I know. And thank you, sir. And just so that we know roughly how long you think you'll need for your presentation?
7 to 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll give you 10, and if you need a couple more, that's fine. But
Sure.
if you don't, just have a thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good morning to each of you, Mr. Chair, as well as the rest of the board members. On behalf of the East Tampa Community Advisory Committee, I would like to provide a brief update. Allow me to go through some written points to make sure that I can highlight them about our East Tampa area. First highlight is the opportunity to attend the CRA conference in October of last year. It was very informative about the work that we do in our CRAs, as well as how we can partner with our city to do extended work. The CAC is ready to move forward with the wayfinding project design and implementation phase now that the board has adopted the final concept. This project is intended to improve navigation, strengthen district identity, and support place-making throughout the East Tampa area, so that is exciting. The CAC is also looking forward to the board's consideration of the East Tampa Community Redevelopment Plan. The committee believes that the updated CRP will provide important framework to guide redevelopment priorities, and future investments within the district. At our most recent meeting last week, the CAC unanimously recommended that the CRA board authorize the issuance of a request for qualification RFQ for a master developer for the Gator building. In fact, this is giving movement to it, but there was also a pleasure of the board to see this move a little quicker. I think based on some of the suggested recommendations, it may still be a 3-year process, and we know that that building was purchased at that time around 10 years if it goes to 2029. So we definitely need to see movement quicker than that, but we are moving into the right direction, but definitely will need support to see how that can be a quicker process so that the community can see revitalization on 22nd Street. The CAC also recommended that the CRA board approve the RFP to undertake a corridor study that will lead to development of comprehensive projects and a master development plan. The goal of this effort is to align the corridor redevelopment with goals of the CRP and establish a clear strategy for how East Tampa corridors can develop over the next 8 to 13 years. I believe this comes on the agenda in May, so if you would keep a note on that to evaluate that. In addition to those planning initiatives, the CAC recently recommended 2 housing projects through the Unit Creation and Conversion Program, helping those who are legacy homeowners. One project involves the development of mixed-use apartment complex on 34th Street and 21st Avenue, and the second is a single-family home ownership development in Ybor Heights. Both projects receive support from the CAC and are expected to come before the CRA board for consideration in May. Housing continues to be a major focus within East Tampa. As of February 28th of last month, East Tampa has expanded approximately $1.14 million in down payment assistance and approximately $2.3 million through homeowner rehabilitation, with additional applications currently pending approval. So we are seeing families receive down payment assistance as well as some housing rehab. The CAC also continues to receive updates on additional redevelopment efforts, including the 12th and Osborne and Palafox and 19th properties where requests for proposals are currently under review and expected to move forward soon. Phase 1 of the East Tampa infill development initiatives is also anticipated to move forward in an RFP process soon, with planning underway to develop in that fashion. Finally, January 6th, interesting date, but January, our CAC meeting, we voted for there to be a beginning of a process to have an extension of our sunset date in East Tampa. We are suggested now to end September 30th, 2034, but unanimously the CAC voted to start the process for an extension to September 30th, 2039, in which extensions have been granted. We want to go through the proper channels for an extension to take place. I do want to share in the few minutes that I have remaining and then entertain any questions as possible. There are a few residents that spoke today about the displeasure of what's happening in East Tampa. And I do hope that you will pay attention to what is being said. While some familiar faces may come, they do represent a good portion of the community that may feel disenfranchised about the lack of movement and what is happening there. They're more comfortable. They have the time to come and speak before the chambers to share the displeasure of the community. The reason why the extension is so important is because there are still several projects that are behind. And because I don't work for the city, I don't know the reason why certain things have become delayed in process. But we do know by visual presentation, looking at the East Tampa CRA compared to the other CRAs, there has been forward progression and movement that has taken place at a further progressional place than East Tampa. And that really needs to be addressed. A couple of weeks ago, I stood here and asked, I believe the last CRA meeting, that there be a town hall in East Tampa just to listen to the residents about how they feel. There are more residents that than those that come here that have some concerns about where we are. The bigger issue is if we look at past, I wouldn't say administrations, but those that are in East Tampa and those that have represented us, we can't pinpoint one champion that says that their project is to see projects move forward in East Tampa. And I think that is the difference of what the community members are saying compared to other CRAs, that there have been notable champions that say, I'm going to take up this issue, to look at the blight of what's happening in the community and ensure through public and private partnerships that East Tampa becomes the community. I know I've had conversations with Mr. McCray, and he's let me in on some conversations. We talked about, someone said today about 22nd Street. Well, there are some persons there who don't want to sell their properties, but I know the city does have some suggestive maybe tactics to encourage people to sell, and I implore that happens. They are a nuisance on 22nd Street. There are stores that are there that are selling bad items. I went into one a couple of months ago in a store that was open, and a rat ran across my foot while I was in that store. This is in East Tampa. I'm wondering how these stores get past health care inspections and code violations. Somebody is doing something. There are some conversations that are taking place behind the scenes, because there's no way that would happen in South Tampa, in some other areas of the city. So there needs to be a deep dive into why citizens and the residents of East Tampa continue to feel this way. Now, on behalf of my fellow colleagues that sit on the board, I believe that they're very much vested. They're homeowners, they're business owners, and they really believe in what's going to happen in East Tampa, but we're volunteers. We cannot do it alone. And we sometimes feel as if we're the lone wolf standing in the background shouting, saying, do you see what's happening here? Do you see what is not happening here? And then the last thing, a fellow committee member wanted to talk about the partnership, the East Tampa partnership. Some years ago, those meetings were combined for the CAC and the partnership. But since the restructuring of the CAC, there are no longer subcommittees, and the partnership is fizzling out. That may be a great opportunity, because there is a business economic engine that can be developed in East Tampa if there is a structured design for business owners to be a part of a partnership, and definitely need the CRA board to help facilitate that, to support those businesses in the area. And I believe those are all of my highlighted points about what we're doing great, and some things that we can do to continue to move the ball forward in East Tampa.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your presentation and your work. Any comments or questions by board members? Okay. Okay. A great presentation, sir. We appreciate your service. Thank you,
Is
sir.
that it?
Yes, sir.
No questions or comments?
It would appear not.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Be well. Board Member Clendenin, you were going to say something, sir?
I would just say, man, you should give a class to everybody else that gives reports, having it really reflect what the board brought back, and I think you did an outstanding job. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. Okay. Next we go. Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead, sir, please.
No, just quickly, you all have, folks from East Tampa have participated in the past with the plans we've done for the CRA overall. We have detailed plans, and we have ideas that should be implemented, and and all of that has been done interactively with the community. If for some reason you think it's not, it sounds like you think some of it's not doing, please let us know what we can change to try to get that done, and we'll work on it.
Yeah, I don't know what the process would be, but I do believe some type of town hall, and I know that our board members cannot be in the same space outside of the chambers to have comment, but to create a space for residents to be able to share about how they feel, because there are a lot of them that cannot get here. For them to be able to tell you what they feel needs to be done when it comes to development. A lot of times we have in mind what we think people want, and we never stop to really ask them. We sometimes have focus groups, but they are more or less coordinated to get to an end objective, instead of just saying, hey, what is it? We're here. We want to hear from you. What is it that we can do to support the residents better? So I think that town hall would be great.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Board Member Young, go ahead, ma'am.
I would just say, one thing that I've always said is I've encouraged people to call my office plenty of times, and I would continue to encourage that. And as far as the town hall, I'm actually already working on that. But I would also, again, if there are issues in the community, and this is something I've always said, we have a very open door policy, open phone policy. Darlene and I are in the office all the time, and I've said that to many, many residents. I can't make people call me and have a conversation with me, but I'm always willing to work with people that are really and wanting to work with me. Collaboration is a big part of what I've talked about, but you can't collaborate with someone that doesn't want to. So I would just encourage people to continue to reach out I've put it out there multiple times, but if you don't call, then we don't get an opportunity to actually have a conversation.
Yeah, not to psychoanalyze this, but you're absolutely correct. I think there may be some that may feel we've done that before, not before you or whatever, and they get the same result. So we're dealing with a little of the history there for years that predates many of us and those of you that are sitting there of disenfranchisement in that community. I moved to East Tampa in 2004 to pastor a church. That's 22 years ago. And many of the things seem and look the same, once again, because there hasn't been a distinct champion to say, this is what I'm going to do. You may have a champion for Ybor City and say, hey, we're going to put all of our resources here. That person will remain nameless for the great things that he's doing for Ybor City. But we haven't necessarily seen that for East Tampa. And I think until that happens, whether that is someone from a private sector or public sector to say that this is our duty, to make sure that whatever the plans are for redevelopment and business development for East Tampa, we're not going to let it go until it happens, and we're going to hold everybody accountable. So, but thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We'll continue to tell. But
You'll never know anything or what's going on if you don't call and talk.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that to anybody, because
Sure.
I've put that out multiple times. And as always, I'm always willing and ready to work with anybody that wants and is willing and ready to work with me, because that's my job.
yeah. Thank you. And I know we've had conversations before. I'm just speaking as a broader sense for the community.
Yeah.
And I think there's just that past trauma of community hurt. And so we want to encourage people to push them to that, to call your office and share with the
Absolutely.
other members what their concerns are.
Absolutely, please. And talk to me. I make time. So if you need to get on the calendar, and I'm saying this to you to pass on to whoever else, come and sit down and have a conversation with me. I completely understand as far as past things. I wasn't there, and there's a lot of things that predate me. I've only been here 5 months, so there's a lot of things that have happened that I wasn't there for that. But what I've done and what I have said, and what I've said to many people out in the community is, I want to work. I went to Middleton. I've seen the same 22nd Street. I've seen it. I've asked the questions myself. But I'm always willing and ready to work with anybody that wants to sit down and work with me. So I'm saying that on this dais, because whoever watches this meeting and whoever you speak to in the community, if they want to have a conversation with me please bring them to me. Come and talk to me. Just have a conversation. That's all I ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Agree with you. Thank you for that.
Board Member Carlson.
Yeah,
go ahead.
just to follow up on that, if you, I want her to hear this. What I was going to say is, if there's I'll back that up in a second. I think there are some systemic issues we need to address that have been around for a long time, and those are the address. What I was going to say is, Councilwoman Young, if you put together a town hall, could you please have staff set it up in a way that if it's publicly noticed and if we take minutes, then the rest of us can attend. There are no CRA districts in my district in South Tampa, but the folks in South Tampa look at the CRA districts as an investment, in part from South Tampa. I mean, to be honest, the places that don't have CRAs are funding the CRAs in other areas. And in case anybody doesn't believe that, for example, in downtown, who's paying downtown's police and fire? The places that don't have CRA are paying that. So the way I think a lot of the people outside the CRA districts look at it as it's an investment, and what are those areas giving up? They're giving up roads with potholes, parks that have problems, and other things, so they can invest in those districts. And so if the people in the districts aren't happy, then the folks who are helping to invest are not happy either. And so I think we all have a stake in making sure these are successful, and we need to make sure that we listen to it, and we want to be able to support Councilwoman Young's efforts in her district. She has great connections and is well liked in the district. I can say she's better connected in East Tampa than I am, but I've never heard any complaints about her service. The issues that I've heard in the past, and these are systemic, is that the mayor's projects get fast-tracked, and then the community's projects and city council's project or CRA board's projects get slow-walked. And the biggest example is the EDC, which I think most people in the community believe is a boondoggle that's a total waste of money and unsuccessful. How is it that we can't get enough money to do tree trimming and basic things like that, but suddenly fast-tracked is millions of dollars on a project that the EDC pushes, where we should have gone directly to the community instead of getting a group from downtown to come up with their ideas about how East Tampa should be affected. We should have invested directly in organizations in East Tampa. And somehow we have a workshop coming up on protocol and the contract between the CRA and the city, but we've got to fix this systemic problem, because all the projects of the CRA and the community across the CRA districts are getting slow walked, where the mayor's projects are getting fast tracked. And somehow we have to build trust. The other thing is we've never fixed the communication problem. Since the last meeting even, we've had communication from the CRA go out on the city's communication platforms and not on the CRA platform. I'm going to ask for, when we have the workshop, a ban on the city communication department sending out any announcements on the CRA. What they should be doing is reposting the announcements from the CRA, not taking credit for everything that's going on. It's confusing the public. The public thinks that the projects in the CRA are being funded in lieu of investing in other things in the community because somebody's trying to take credit for it. If we were Habitat for Humanity and the mayor's office decided to send out press releases for us, we certainly would shut them down. There's no reason why we continue to let them do that. Maybe as city council we need to prohibit it, but as a CRA, we're paying for staff to do this. We're paying for services. We should not have the communication department do it because they don't know how to communicate CRA. If we're working on a CRA project, it needs to be clearly communicated as a CRA project from CRA channels. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. And go ahead. And what I'm going to do, by the way, from now on is, Charlene, if you don't mind, let's do 5 minutes and then 3-minute follow-up, and then after that, just so that we have some order. But go ahead, sir, because we're still on item number 1.
I better not take 3 minutes. I'm going to keep hitting this until it resonates and assumes an air of truth amongst everybody, is that when we're talking about investment, and specifically in the East Tampa CRA, there's tens of thousands of people live in the East Tampa CRA. What's the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people? Because I think part of the problem I hear is that it's this, which is very different than the other CRAs that have been able to move forward, is because the other CRAs are relatively homogenous, and they are all focused kind of in the same type of direction. Like the paving of 7th Avenue in Ybor City, or doing these type of improvements. What Water Street is trying to do, there's these types of projects, and of course downtown it's the big cultural arts centers. We're very focused, but East Tampa is a very different beast. So I hate hearing the comparisons of CRAs because they're very different animals, and they need to be, because what East Tampa needs as a CRA is to focus on the people. And not, we don't need to focus on creating a Water Street in East Tampa CRA, because if we create a Water Street in East Tampa CRA, we're creating an area of unaffordability. We're creating a gentrification engine. We need to be focused on, I'll keep banging this drum, owner rehab, keeping senior citizens in their houses, making sure, replacing roofs, doing small projects to actually help the people that currently live in this area, so that and maintaining current housing stock. We don't want to replace housing stock, because when we replace housing stock, we're taking an affordable unit and turning it into an unaffordable unit. So that is the future and the benefit of maintaining East Tampa CRA for the people of East Tampa CRA. Otherwise, it's a slippery slope. If we use this opportunity of a CRA to try to create what you see in some of these other districts, you're going to look back in 15 years and nobody that's living there is going to be there. They're going to be out in Pasco County, or they're going to be out in East Tampa or East Hillsborough County. They're going to be pushed out. We're not going to be able to accommodate the people that are living there. So there's definitely an opportunity to do some home ownerships to create a balance, because a balance always matters in a community. You want to have this number of this type of housing stock, because you have to have some people that have some money so that they can create retail environments and that everybody can enjoy. But we have to make sure that balance really is focused on people that live in East Tampa, period, blank, the end. Let's stop talking about, oh, what downtown is doing or what Channelside is doing. No, let's focus on what can East Tampa do. Let's create a little commercial district so you guys have a little pizza parlor and a dry cleaning shop and a coffee shop that you can go to. And, let's create some artist space so black artists have a place to thrive in East Tampa with the culture that people and the students that live there can walk down there and see that this is the artistic opportunities and stuff. So that's what I want to. That's what I would like to see in East Tampa, is making East Tampa for East Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we appreciate you, sir. Thank you very much.
We're good this time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No, I appreciate all of you. Have a great day.
Yes, sir. Be well. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. Okay, moving forward, item number 2, CRA Director's Report. Mr. McCray, go ahead, sir.
Good morning again, Board Member Cedric McCray, Tampa CRA Director. You, as customary, have received the projects, grants, and residential trackers, and I will continue. Wanted to highlight South Salinas Park. We're anticipating that the ribbon cutting will be either the first or second week of April. More to come on that. Herman Massey, we are anticipating April 21st for the ribbon cutting. Had an opportunity to walk by and take a look yesterday, and and speak to some of the folks that are conducting the work, and things look very promising. So, and that's been a long time coming on Franklin Street. So things are moving ahead. I would like to also highlight, and we discussed this during the workshop last Friday. Thank you for those of you who were able to attend. Thought it was very productive, but wanted to also share that, we were looking, because there was a motion that was made previously related to the performance standards and the services agreement. The date that we were looking at was April 14th, and so you should have received a calendar invite for that, and I believe a majority have responded in the affirmative, but that location would be here in the chambers between 9 and 12 p.m. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from board members? Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
All righty. And then there also was a request during the workshop for a walk-on item this morning, and I know that I believe Ms. Hurtak was going to be the one to introduce it, but I have corresponded with Ms. Soto Quintana with the clerk's office, and that was related to the pre-development item 65 that was on your city council agenda last Thursday. And I know that you all have received the information, and Ms. Rosshaven or I will be able to answer any questions that you all may have related to that specific item.
Any questions? Okay. Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Clendenin, seconded by Board Member Maniscalco. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Anything further, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
I would highlight that we did host the CAC orientation this past Monday, and had about 16 or 17 individuals from various CACs or CRAs in attendance. And so it was very successful. We actually had a few people that showed up that have a level of interest in serving, but they're not actively on a community advisory committee for any CRA. But one item that I was instructed to share with you, and I would like to submit for the record, the West Tampa chair, Mr. Robinson, shared a few documents that he wanted and requested be submitted for the record. The first document was minutes from the November 13th, 2025 CRA board meeting, and he is highlighting item number 6 related to the approval of commercial grant policy for standard grants. So that is the first item. The second item was a document from January 22nd, 2020. It's an ethics opinion on acceptance of an East Tampa tree trimming grant while serving as chair of the East Tampa Community Advisory Committee. And the third document was a memo that was sent to our CRA board attorney, Shepard, related to a Ybor City CRA CAC member that it was believed that there was a potential conflict, and this memo came from attorney Tyler Hudson. So wanted to submit those 3 documents for the record.
Thank you, sir. And any questions on that from council members or board members? Okay.
And as it relates to the item 65 that was walked on, it is my understanding that you all had questions or would like to discuss that at this time?
Any questions on item 65? Board Member Carlson?
I think it needs to be presented to the public so the public knows what it is. The only way we described it is item 65 so far.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Rosshaven. I am an Economic Development Specialist with the CRA Commercial Grants Team. And I'm here to provide you an overview of the as-needed design assistance and development consultation for CRA commercial pre-development grants consultant services agreements scheduled for City Council approval on April 2nd. The CRA is securing as-needed services from 5 local firms, each contracted through the city's Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act process to provide architectural and engineering services expertise required to implement the CRA commercial pre-development grant. The pre-development grants were initially approved in June 2024 as part of the grant portfolio realignment, and updates to this grant were approved by the CRA board in November of 2025. Funding for the pre-development grants has been included as individual line items in the approved CRA area budgets during the last 2 years. These firms were selected through the standard city request for qualifications and CCNA procedures, including participation in the Equal Business Opportunity Program representative in the scoring, and represent a range of sizes and experience levels, including 2 certified small local business enterprise firms. The consultant utilization and project assignments will be based on the pre-development grant applications provided to the CRA, and the funding is allocated annually in each area. Annual funding for this pre-development grant is capped at by your CRA grants and funding policy, most recently approved in November, and the annual budgets adopted by each CRA area. Based on the policy limitations, the total expenditures are expected to remain below $10 million over the 3-year contract period, subject to annual budget approval and appropriations. Again, this is an as-needed contract. We were suggested to write the agreements for the maximum amount of money we expected that we could legally spend on this project, but it will be driven by the annual approved budgets and the applications from the community for this grant. The $2.8 million represented in the agreement for FY26 is money already in the approved budget. We have several property owners interested in this project and waiting for the availability of this program. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Board Member Carlson,
What-
go ahead, sir.
Why wouldn't we just offer a grant to someone and they hire their own consultants? How come the city has to be involved in it?
So in discussions with the city attorney, or the CRA attorney, and with the contract admin, it was recommended that we provide this as a services grant. So it's a value to grant as $150,000 value, so that we can control the quality and the type of product, and that we retain the ownership of the plans. One of the parts of this agreement is we need to make sure that this project, if we pay for it, moves to a completed improvement and just doesn't sit as a plan. So one of the ways to do that was for us to own the plans.
I just philosophically object with this, first of all, this administration being involved in CRA activities, because they don't seem to do a good job and they seem to prioritize the projects that they want rather than what the community wants. But number 2, I just believe that the private sector can find their own consultants. The city usually gets much higher prices than the private sector gets, and I know we've had at least one issue in the past, but I'm just going to vote against this because I object to the city micromanaging what should be a private sector decision.
Most of our grants are structured as reimbursement grants typically, and one of the challenges that have been expressed to us that this is hoping to solve is that small business owners or small property owners don't typically have the cash flow or the cash availability to hire consultants on their own to be done as a reimbursement basis. So in this case, we can eliminate that hurdle by us paying the contractors directly through this grant.
I think that there has to be another solution besides having the city micromanage what should be a private sector decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in council or CRA? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Yes, board member. Yes, sir. Board member Maniscalco, seconded by board member Clendenin. All in favor? Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes with Carlson voting no and Miranda and Hurtak being absent.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, that concludes the director's report.
Great. Any comments or questions for Director McCray? Okay. We thank you as always, sir. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Next, we go forward. Item number 3.
Okay. No, item 3 is just a, you all have already approved the funding previously. This is just the funding agreement because of the motion that was made. Anything over $1 million would be brought to you during staff reports. So the agreement as written is for $15 million over 3 years. And this is for work that's going to be done at the Florida Aquarium.
Okay. We have a motion by Board Member Maniscalco, second by Board Member Young. Any comments or questions? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Item number 4 is related to the funding agreement for the 701 Whiting LLC. And this item came before you all in November of last year and was for $4 million for 22 affordable units.
Okay. Any questions? Board Member Maniscalco has made a motion, seconded by Board Member Clendenin. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Next one.
And item number 5 is in the East Tampa CRA. Also came before you in the November 2025 meeting. Clance Properties, it was for $1.75 million. Initially during the presentation, I believe it was shared that there were going to be 12 units created, but we received an update roughly about 2 weeks ago. They are going to be able to do 14 units on site, and the dollar amount will not change. So we're still suggesting the 1.75 million.
Great. Yes, sir. Board Member Carlson, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think when we talk about affordable housing, we should say how many units at what percentage AMI. There was a recent, I think it was the Army Navy yard, which said that it was going up to 140% AMI, which market rate right now is 80% AMI, at least in parts of South Tampa. And 140% AMI is like 100, as I recall, about 146,000 for a family of 4. And I don't think we should be subsidizing above 100% AMI. We should not be funding above 80% AMI. But I think we ought to at least disclose, because there's a lot of talk about funding affordable housing, but if it's 140% AMI, it really isn't affordable housing. And then the term workforce housing is being thrown out. But what the community is saying, they want 30 to 50% AMI, not 140%. So I think we ought to just disclose it, because otherwise we're going to get a lot of questions anyway.
Yes, sir. Point
And
taken.
I'm in favor of affordable housing. Obviously, I made the motion years ago, but anything above 100% AMI, I'm just going to vote against. So.
Board Member Maniscalco has made a motion.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Can
ahead.
you let us know how
Ms.
many?
Parks just reminded me this is 80%.
All the new
Yes,
units also?
this will
Okay.
be parks for the record. This is going to be 80% and below.
So I'll vote yes.
We have a second. Second by Board Member Young. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Next, item 6.
In item 6, there was a memo submitted related to the requested monthly update for Tampa Union Station.
Board Member Carlson, anything, sir, on this?
No, I would just ask the mayor's advisors to get out of the way and let us fix this important landmark. It's falling apart. And it looks like this memo is the best of the ones we've gotten. But if we're sitting here 6 months from now, I think the community is going to revolt, and the mayor's going to have more than just the attorney general after. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Any further comments on that? Okay. Let's go forward then to item number 9. I know, right?
Good morning, Melissa Martinez. I'm a senior project supervisor with the Tampa CRA. So I'm here today to present one of the 4 funding requests that I have left from the previous commercial grant policy. This is Ms. Michelle Smith, and she is with the Tampa Arts Alliance. She will do a presentation, and I'll come back for any questions. Thank you.
Melissa, is the program up?
We can bring up the presentation, please.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, thank you. Oh, there we are. Good morning, Chair, and good morning, CRA board members. I am Michelle Smith, President and CEO of the Tampa Arts Alliance. We appreciate the CRA's partnership in advancing the Downtown Arts Center.
Oh, name? Did you say? Oh, yeah, thank you. Thank you. How long do you think you need for time? Thank you.
3 minutes.
Oh, okay, we'll give you 5. That's fine. Thank you. Thank you for that.
So the owners of the Fifth Third Tower, Farley White Interests, they have gifted the Alliance a multi-year $0 lease of a 5,000 square foot space of prime real estate right in the heart of downtown, right next door on the first floor. With your help, we are building a cultural asset that advances the CRP goals, provides outstanding return on your investment, stimulates economic growth downtown, and benefits the entire city. Our Tampa Arts Directory in this presentation has cataloged over 200 cultural spaces in Tampa for people to visit. Located at the very center bottom is the center that we are intending to build. It will act as a visibility amplifier for the entire arts ecosystem. We will leverage the access to high-density visitors, residents, and workers in downtown to spread awareness to all of the art that is made here by people who live here. In collaboration with our downtown and citywide partners, this initiative will at times also spill into the parks with public activations. The center aligns with the CRP goals beautifully. LUED goal number 2 promotes economic growth. The center attracts visitors to downtown and encourages cultural tourism throughout the city. PSQ goal number 1, quality of life and community engagement. The center serves as a welcoming, inclusive gathering space, strengthening community identity through arts programming, exhibitions, and activations. PSQ goal number 3, connectivity and activation of public spaces. Activating adjacent areas such as Poe Plaza and Lakes Gaslight Park with innovative arts programming. The project provides access to cultural amenities and strengthens downtown as a destination. Some visuals of the space as it is raw right now. It's really lovely. All of this impact is available by fully funding our special projects grants requests of $700,000. We are matching those funds with community support so we can start a build out anticipating for this spring. On behalf of the Tampa Arts Alliance Board of Directors, thank you so much to the CRA staff for your kind support and knowledge. Thank you to the Downtown CAC for their thoughtful inquiries and their enthusiastic endorsement of the space. And thank you to each of you CRA board members for all your support of the arts in Tampa. We look forward to collaborating with you to create a cultural space that honors and inspires our city.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. And ma'am, were you going to say something? Or?
Yes.
Go ahead, please. And how much time do you think you'll need?
It's just to give you an update on the memo that you have in front of you. You should have a package that stays. So the project cost is 1.4 million. Per our commercial grant policy. We request a 50% match from the applicant. So the staff recommendation is $700,000, but the applicant requested $1 million. I just wanted to explain that because it's on your memo, so that you guys can vote. Thank you.
And I see various lights on. Who was first?
He was first.
Okay, go for it. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this is, I'm fully in support of this project. I think it's exciting. I think it's, I know like many of my fellow council persons, we definitely support the arts. And I think I'm really excited to have that space for the community and have the activation that you guys are planning in that space is incredible, that you're able to work with the landowner to be able to get it for this opportunity. Because this is considered a commercial grant, it's the old program from old, there's this, we're kind of treating them in a weird situation because it's a cultural asset we've got this 700 versus $1 million request. So if there's a way of being able to grant their full request, and I've spoke to staff, we have the ability to reprogram to accommodate their full request of $1 million. So I would like to pursue giving them the full $1 million that they're asking for.
Wish to make a motion, sir? Or?
I do. I wish
Okay.
to motion
I'll
to
second
grant the
that.
full amount.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we have a motion by Board Member Clendenin. We'll take it up after comment, if that's okay. I anticipate it'll pass. Board Member Maniscalco, Board Member Carlson, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. So I walk past this spot, I mean, it's across the street, but I walk past it daily, almost daily. And my question is, all you see is the mirror frontage. Will you be replacing the glass so people can see in? Or is it just going to be the reflection as is existing per the design of the building?
We're working with the building on that, but likely due to the restrictions of the building, we will not be able to affect the glazing on the windows.
Okay.
However, we did recently experiment with having a neon sign, and it is fantastic. It's high visibility. So we'll work with the owners to see if we can artistically program some of the windows to get more visibility. In addition, at night, you see straight in. So it works as a wonderful advertisement piece. Our flexible display system will turn out towards the windows and be lit from below. So that is a constant visibility to all the crowds going to Lightning games and to the parks to see this as a space that's activated with art.
Great. I think it's a wonderful spot because we're in a part of downtown where you have the police museum across the street, and then you have Curtis Sixon and the Museum of Art and the Children's Museum far away. I mean, it's walkable, but again, for people in the photography museum, they moved to Ybor City. So there's that gap in between. I think this is great because first you have high traffic down Tampa Street on Kennedy Boulevard. If it's lit up at night, as you mentioned, people will see it. People that are walking to games or other events. I know at one point it was a bank,
Yes.
right? It has the bank vault that I think is going to be repurposed.
Yes.
But this is a better use. This is a better investment. Now that we have so many more residents and so many more visitors downtown, this is another opportunity. Because again, there's that gap between the History Center and Curtis Sixon and the Museum of Art, and now you have this. So it's a wonderful addition, and I'm really excited to support the $1 million request if that's, that's going to be taken up. But this is a very worthy investment, and I'm glad and thankful that you brought this up. Thank you and your team.
Thank you, sir. Board Member
I want to ask Mr. Shepard, are you on, the CRA attorney?
Yes, I'm here.
So one of the staff members asked if I have a conflict because I sit on the board of the Tampa Arts Alliance. I also contribute money to them. I have no business relationship with them other than that I donate money. And so I checked with you, I checked with Marty Shelby, who also checked with Marcy from city staff. Can you just confirm, please, on the record that I don't have a conflict?
Yes, that is confirmed. You have no special private gain or loss, which is the standard based on your voting on this matter.
Okay, thank you. And then just a comment, for a lot of reasons, including politics, I was very involved in the development of downtown St. Pete while Tampa was developing parallel, although I've always lived in Tampa. St. Pete started with the arts and built the buildings after. Tampa started with the buildings and now is building the arts. And we had big art assets, but now we're building the connectivity. And that's what has really been missing in downtown. I call it the difference between hardware and software. In St. Pete, they started with the software and then the hardware came. In Tampa, we started with the hardware and now the software is coming. This is a really important piece of software because it will provide connectivity, not just in this facility, but with the adjacent parks, with all kinds of arts activities. Over the last few years, the CRA has invested in expanding and refurbishing the Stratus Center, Tampa Museum of Art, the parks around it, Tampa Theater, Union Station, if that ever gets off the ground, the Jackson House, and now this. And across the street at Tampa City Center is the Visit Tampa Bay Welcome Center. And so conceivably, they'll be able to say, hey, if you're interested in the arts, this is a gateway to talk about the arts, plus there will be all kinds of activations and artists of all kinds that will hopefully show off the great nationally, internationally known artists we have of Tampa and also the ones that are potentially going to be known. Michelle was a leader at the Downtown Partnership, and then she's been running this Arts Alliance for several years, and she's a great visionary leader who's been able to build consensus throughout the region, and I want to personally thank her for her leadership on this. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Go ahead, ma'am, please. I didn't see. I'm
No, it's
sorry.
okay. No, I
apologize.
just wanted to say I went to the, I guess it was it like the open
Yes.
house? Yeah, and you can already kind of see the vision in the space, so I'm really excited to see it come to fruition. And I love, it was like the meditation room or something that was there, so I think this is going to be really awesome. And I've worked with many artists, and so just, to continue to see these spaces come where they can display their art, I think is really important, so I'm really looking forward to it. That's all.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. So, Board Member Clendenin, would this suffice then for passing item number 9, but with a request to put it up to $1 million, correct?
I move item number 9 with amending the amount awarded to $1 million.
Okay. And I do have, by the way, I have a request of y'all that I just thought of when I was up there, but it'll come afterwards. So we have a motion by Board Member Clendenin to pass item number 9 with an additional $300,000. We have a second by Board Member Maniscalco. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Thank you, ma'am. One thing I was going to say, if I may, is, it dawned on me, which is our friends, McDonald Training Center, right? They do wonderful art, and I'm going to, would you guys be amenable to having a display there for people with intellectual disabilities and artwork? I would assume so, but great. So what I'll do is, Sebastian, if you don't mind to get these nice folks in touch with Phyllis Guthman and folks at McDonald Training Center, and just to have a space here, I think that would be great. That would be wonderful. So I'd love to. Love to make a part of the official item number 9, but that's fine. We're too late. But you're obviously a good person. I know you'll do that. So we'll put you in touch. And but is that something you would agree to do? I assume.
Absolutely. I can't wait to have these conversations with you all, and get started in with the community for our programming and make sure this is a resource that really serves the entire city.
Thank
all
you,
of our
ma'am.
residents.
And so I'll have, if I may, Sebastian, if you don't mind, give her your card, sir, and we'll connect you with that and set up a call. Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about this and her vision on this is you'll have a living space. So there's going to be not just one type of art, but you'll have performance art. You have the art. So these things will evolve and they'll rotate through, and so there'll always be something new in the space. And I think that's what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, one other thing, you talked about student artists and special abilities artists. There are great artists all throughout the community, and the main mission of the Arts Alliance is to try to find them. And so if any artists are watching this and you're not connected, or if you know of artists, I mentioned a few months ago, there's this guy, Ferry. Do you know him? I knew him as a student at USF, and he was painting like portraits and stuff. And then he had an event with a couple thousand people at the Addition a couple months ago, and he's selling his stuff all over the place at really high prices. And so you never know when, Anika is another one selling, a Time magazine cover and all these great things. Dean Mitchell, Yala Ford. There are so many great artists here who are selling things everywhere around the world, and we really need to celebrate it. But for the ones who are students or kind of starving artists who want to get plugged in, please contact Michelle.
Thank you. Can't wait to collaborate.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate you. Thank you very much. And that finishes our agenda, correct, sir? Oh, go ahead, sir. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good morning again. Cedric McCray, Tampa CRA Director. It was brought to my attention via email that Mr. Robinson had one other document he wanted to submit for the record, and it is a memorandum through the former city attorney Andrea Zellman on October 10th, 2020, related to ordinance revising the City of Tampa Ethics Code to comply with the Florida Constitution, Florida Statutes Code of Ethics, and a letter to Mayor Castor, the Ethics Commission, and current practices, and to modify the city's volunteer requirements. So, and I'm told from the clerk's office that the board needs to request that a motion be made to receive all of those documents, all 4 documents.
Motion by Board Member Scalco, seconded by Board Member Clendenin. Any discussion or questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, motion time. Board Member Carlson, anything, sir? Or information reports? Go ahead, sir. Board Member Clendenin? Okay, Board Member Young? You sure? Okay. Board Member Maniscalco.
Yes.
Go for it. Yes.
All
sir.
right, I made this motion at a regular meeting, but I wanted to put it in the CRA agenda because it's CRA related. So this is from a request by Vince Pardo, who worked for the city and with the CRAs. And it was for Thursday, April 9th, just for 5 minutes. The mayor of Cianciana, Sicily is visiting. There's part of like an Italian Heritage Week. That mayor has an appointment or meeting with this mayor, our mayor, from 9 a.m. to 9:30. It's a CRA day, and I'd like to invite him for 5 minutes right after. It can't be earlier than 9 because we're not in session yet, but to have that mayor just come and say hello with Mr. Vince Pardo again. So,
I was going to say.
Well.
So we have a motion by Board Member Maniscalco, seconded by Board Member Clendenin. Board Member Young, go ahead. Were you going to say something? Okay.
Wait, you gotta
yes,
vote
ma'am.
on it. Vote on it.
Okay, any discussion on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, ma'am, go ahead, please.
I have some other things, but just I would say these now. Just to kind of also, I want to just make sure I put out there, please, if you are in District 5 and you have a question, a comment, concern, or anything, call my office, please. And also, I just want to let the community know that in terms of the corner stores, our office has already contacted the Florida Department of Agriculture and Community Services, the Division of Food Safety, and they're already coming out and they're going to be inspecting those stores, so we've already done that. And I would also like to say, in addition to that, for the corner stores, because I know that was a big conversation and it has not stopped. We've been continuing to work on that. And we have our legal team that has been reviewing additional documentation that we've been receiving, and they're actually going out to visit some of those stores themselves. So I would urge you, please, to give our office a call, have a conversation, come and meet with me. I'm always ready and willing to work with anybody that wants to and is willing and ready to work with our office. I have always talked about and stressed the importance of collaborating and doing things together because we can't do everything by ourselves, and I'm going to continue to harp on that, and I'm going to continue to say and express how important it is to work with people that are willing and want to work with you. So if you have a question, comment, or concern, and you're willing to work, because on this side, we're working. We're on the work bus. So if you want to work with me, give me a call so we can do work together, because there's a lot of needs in the community, and I need partners and people who want to work. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else? Motion by Board Member Maniscalco, seconded by?
Me,
Go ahead, sir. Yes, sir.
Cedric and staff. My challenge yesterday was let's keep this baby short and sweet, and you accepted the challenge, and here we are at 10:30 in the morning. Boom. Amazing.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Maniscalco, second by Board Member Clendenin. Any discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Amazing.
I bet. I think fair guy.